All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in.
I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Tricia Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Welcome, Yub Cubs, to Fangirls Going Rogue. I am one of your hosts, Teresa Delgado, and with me, as always, are, let's see, well, you wouldn't be my backup singers. You would be, what are the
chorus
names?
Girls.
No.
Supporting cast? Your co-stars.
Yes, that. Sarah Woloski from Skywalking Through Neverland. My co-leads.
There you go.
There we go. Sarah, how you doing? How are things?
I am doing much better now that the 3 weekends leading up to Christmas are now over. It's been very busy here over here.
Yes, it has. You showed me what your schedule was like, and I was like, holy cow. Tricia Barr from Fangirl Blog, how are you doing? I know you have a lot of cool stuff going on with your horsey.
Peter Parker is just winning everything. And I don't mean by the Spider-Man who just opened last weekend, but my Parker, who is now Zone 4 Horse of the Year, 7 and under champion. I'm so proud of him. He's a 5-year-old competing in the 7-year-old division.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That is awesome. Horse of the Year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, while you guys have been working your tails off, I was in Hawaii for the first time ever. It was awesome. And I called both of you, but I was trying to call you guys at a time that wasn't too early or too late for you because of the time difference. So it was kind of weird.
You're just like so out of the time zone stuff in Hawaii.
Yeah, what is Hawaii? It's like even 2 hours away from LA at least?
Yes, it's 2. So it's
Okay.
It's 6 hours behind Texas. It's 4 hours behind you guys. 7 hours behind Tricia. So
holy cow.
Yeah. It was really, really nice. Alani is beautiful as a resort, but the island is fantastic. They do Disney, but they don't overdo it. So you can actually kind of think of the way the Polynesian is, but even less Disney than what they have there. So I really enjoyed it and I had a good time. So I would go back. I got to drive through a rainbow, not under it, like actually through it. And I think that I'm going to have good luck for the rest of my life, because when does that happen?
That's
ever.
Amazing. Yeah, I loved seeing your pictures. Thanks for taking us on your journey.
I took a ton. All right. Well, today we are going to talk about something that is really special to the three of us. It's one of those kind of odd things that we share, fandom, if you will. I don't know if you would really call it a fandom, but we can for the purposes of this episode.
It's absolutely a fandom.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll call it a fandom. And that is the work of the late, great Stephen Sondheim. So this may be a little off the wall to our regular listeners. This is what we were talking about when we switched our format, is that it was giving us the liberties to be able to do these kind of episodes and things that are different and featuring and highlighting things we enjoy. So this is one of those. I think this is the first real departure we've gotten from Star Wars since we started this. So get ready for some musical talk and us diving into something else that we love so much. Before we start in with who he was and all of that, for those of you who don't know, I want to get a little bit from each of you about the importance of Stephen Sondheim to you individually. So we'll just go in alphabetical order. So Sarah.
Actually, I'd love for Tricia to go first on this one, because I think Tricia has had a longer history with Stephen
What are you
Sondheim.
trying to say?
I'm saying that I think it's better
It
for
is
Tricia.
longer.
That is
Yeah, because she's the one who like kind of instigated this episode, and I would like to know why.
I'm so old.
That is such a nice way to say that she's old, Sarah.
Oh,
I don't know if
mean that. I just meant that I know she worked on, like in college, she worked on some of his musicals and stuff, like all that. So that's all
I
meant.
was, my fandom to musical theater is over 30 years old. It's almost 50 years old. But in college, when I went to college, I was in a production of a Stephen Sondheim musical. And that was a funny thing, happened on the way to the forum. And as most of it always ended up this way. I was a captain of the dance team. I was a choreographer, and they needed someone to just do the mostly dancing role. So I played the character Panacea, and she's has in a lot of musical theater. A lot of the characters that we've grown up on are either, let's see, dancing girls, courtesans, hookers, or women of the night. I don't know how that happens. But that's what she was. She was a courtesan, and the role was just mostly to dance, not to do anything else. But that was the first time I really started to learn about Sondheim, because when you're doing a production, you start to kind of appreciate why you're doing it and what your character's trying to do and what the story is trying to do and trying to understand it. So that was over 30 years ago. And it was one of those fun things. And I kept doing more musical theater. And a lot of times it was because, please, will you do me a favor? Can you help me out? We need a choreographer or something like that. So he kind of kicked off my adventure into musical theater productions, not just watching them, but participating them and trying to figure out how you're going to make it your own as an actor, actress, dancer, singer, whatever you might be.
That's cool. I do want to ask you, this may not have to do with Sondheim, but what was your favorite production that you were in?
I have to say, one of my favorite productions was Kiss Me, Kate. And the reason was the girl who got the part had never acted before, and she's gone on and acted and had a career. So that was her first adventure. And it was one of those things where you're on stage, and I remember she forgot her lines in the song I Hate Men, and she just let out this like primal scream, and it actually worked. So that was one of the first times I ever saw what can happen in live musical theater, where there's a bungle, like you just could see it, like the lines went out of her head and she just went, ah. And if you know that song, I Hate Men, it worked. And so that's like one of my favorite memories of doing musical theater, is the things that you don't know are going to happen. And then I did in that same show, when we did the opening night, I'm going to tell a funny story on myself. When we did the review night, so it was the before opening night, the reviewers were there, and I had a wardrobe malfunction, and the top of my dress actually broke, and the girl next to me's wig fell off, and you have to keep going, you can't stop. So I'm trying to keep my top off, the girl next to me's wig's flown off. We're trying to do this like amazing dance number and keep a straight face, and we lost it. We literally lost it. And then every other girl on the dance line lost it. So they had to cut, and the reviewer just said, there's a moment that none of you will see that was absolutely amazing and made me laugh my butt off. And that was in the review of there was a Chapel Hill newspaper, but that's what he was referring to, was they literally had to carry us off the stage laughing. So again, musical theater, you never know.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So now Sarah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So for me, unknowingly, West Side Story was my first introduction to Stephen Sondheim. And to me, Leonard Bernstein was synonymous with West Side Story. Like, I knew he had composed the music, and I was always so enamored with the rhythm of his music, the rhythm and the cadence of it. And it was just amazing. And little did I know that Sondheim had contributed the lyrics to this production. So, I mean, that would have been my first love. But when I really knew Stephen Sondheim, as introduced to him, was not until 2014 when I saw Into the Woods. And this film, I saw it as a preview screening on the Walt Disney Studios lot. And I had no idea what to expect. Like, I had never heard anything. I had never heard the music, anything like that, which is odd because, you know, I'm very musical. But anyway, this movie just blew me away from the very beginning, that opening 16-minute number to like the end when it, you know, it just all comes back in on itself. Like, I was so in love with this film, not to mention, I mean, Chris Pine is in it, Meryl Streep is in it, like all these amazing people are in it, but I downloaded the soundtrack immediately and listened to it on the 45-minute drive back home from Burbank. So, yeah, that would be my, you know, falling in love with Sondheim.
Awesome. So for me, I listened to the music from West Side Story when I was little, and it took me a long time to actually see the original West Side Story. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because my grandma didn't have it recorded on Betamax or not. It was the music. So I'd heard the music, and Rent is actually really similar. We'll talk about Rent a little bit later, but I knew the music of Rent before I had seen Rent. So then in high school, I was not in theater. That's not a me thing. I played violin in the orchestra and in the pit for some of our musical productions, but I wasn't actually in them. And so they did this thing. It was the black box projects is what they called it. And like groups of seniors would pick a musical, and they would pick a specific section of the musical, and they directed it and choreographed it and did it. It was all student run. So there was different black box productions. And I happened to be there for some reason. I can't remember why. And the one I was sitting there for was Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber, Fleet Street. And they did such an incredible job. And I knew it was Stephen Sondheim because I had played some music for that on my violin and stuff. So I knew it. But whatever they did up there, I was like, whoa. And I just was instantly like in love with that. Then, and so that's back in the early 2000s. And then in 2007, when Sweeney Todd, the movie, came out with Elena Bonham Carter, Jamie Campbell, and Johnny Depp, I was there. I was right there. And I was just the whole thing. It was fantastic. So that's kind of where I come in. But I did know about the music for Into the Woods. I just hadn't ever seen anything as far as like, you know, imagery or anything like that. So similar, Sarah, I went to Into the Woods and I was like, wow, this is so cool. Oh, look, there's Johnny Depp again. It was just magic. It was like, you know,
and the creepiest song, but yes.
Yeah,
It
well,
is
yes.
the creepiest song.
Here's the funniest part about that. Greg loves Anna Kendrick and I love Johnny Depp. So they were both in that movie. So it was
Nice. See, that worked for me because Richard loves Anna Kendrick and I love Chris Pine. So we were all like, it's all good.
Yeah, I just think it's fun. I mean, I haven't seen any of his stuff on Broadway, or I've never been to a Broadway show on Broadway. I've been to them obviously, you know, here, but so I think that's really cool. That's how we all got into it. So cool. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about who Stephen Sondheim was. So he was born in 1930 and he just recently passed away the day after Thanksgiving, November 26th of 2021. And that's actually kind of what triggered us saying, we need to talk about Stephen Sondheim. So
that and West Side Story coming out.
Oh yeah, and
as
of
well.
course West Side Story coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So this is interesting. When he was a teenager, Sondheim was a teenager, his parents had divorced and his mom and he went to Pennsylvania and lived in the same like subdivision as Oscar Hammerstein. And so he became friends with Oscar Hammerstein's son and subsequently was able to ask Hammerstein for help, and he became his personal assistant. So like, bam, just like that, he is like on Broadway. He worked on South Pacific and The King and I as like a PA, you know, just behind the scenes, whatever. But like, he was getting an amazing just learning experience knowing Oscar Hammerstein. So I thought that was insanely, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. The King and I is a wonderful musical.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So he worked as a lyricist with Bernstein on West Side Story when he was 27 years old, and then on Gypsy, which is a really interesting story for its complex female characters. Like a lot of times female characters even in musicals, you know, we'll talk about maybe a little bit later how they get more complicated, but they tended to be kind of one note or in service of the male character. But this is like when you're early on seeing like really complicated characters of all types coming into his storytelling. And then his first show that he did on his own was 1962. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, which I personally have known, which it was a comedy. And it is a comedy. If you've never seen it, you can watch it on film. They did film it, but it's a comedy with a critique of class. And it's like crazy. There's crazy, funny, weird stuff happening in that show if you've never seen it. And if you can get through the weirdness of a really old movie, I really say go check it out, because it's, you know, this is formative years. If you liked Sondheim, you'll like this one.
And that movie came out in 1966 and stars Zero Mostel, who, is that how you say his name?
That's how I say it.
Okay, good. But I think Zero did become famous for actually doing the character in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum on Broadway, and then subsequently took it to the film.
Yeah, and every actor who has opened in the role of Pseudolus on Broadway has won a Best Leading Actor Tony Award for their performance. And the role has also been gender swapped, and Whoopi Goldberg played the role. I think that was off Broadway, if I remember correctly, but I believe 2 times it's been gender swapped. But that character is essentially a slave, and you see how they kind of are working around and within the story.
Wow. Yeah, I see that Nathan Lane also played him, Pseudolos. Sorry.
Yeah, typically if you go on YouTube and you look for it, Nathan Lane typically shows up for like, if you can search like A Comedy Tonight as the opening number, and you know, Nathan Lane's kind of a Broadway staple.
Right.
All right. Well, in 1970, he did the musical Company. And we're going to talk awards here too, because you guys know how I love awards. And that one is important because he did win a Tony Award for Best Musical, Best Composer, and Best Lyricist. So he got several Tonys for that one. And I've never seen this one or heard this one, but apparently it talks about the struggles of marriage. So now I'm intrigued. I hadn't ever heard of it before. And then in 1973, he did A Little Night Music, which includes the song Send in the Clowns, which would be his first commercial hit song. And
my mom sung this song like all the time when she was doing her makeup. I don't know why. It's just she sang it a lot.
Well, there's a theme here because that one also had themes about marriage and divorce. So clearly he was influenced by something, guys.
So does Into the Woods.
Yes.
Too.
Yes.
So, well,
wow.
Sweeney Todd does in a way.
Mm.
I'm going to go ahead and say Sweeney Todd was his dark period.
For sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, before we get to Sweeney Todd, in 1976, he created Pacific Overtures, which was really a fun experiment for him. It fuses haiku poetry, Japanese pentatonic scales in the music, and also the style of kabuki theater with contemporary stage techniques of the time. So this, I mean, how cool is this? And the whole play really questions American imperialism.
And then in 1979, he lets the darkness come through with Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And the underlying themes of that one have everything to do with classism and corruption addiction and all of the dark sides of humanity. And I love every single moment of it.
I feel like he's like
it's evil and demonic, and I love it.
he's like the George Lucas of musicals. I feel like, because he's like questioning imperialism and the political state of the world, and then he's going through his dark times, which would, George Lucas would be what, like the Indiana Jones 2 and the prequel trilogies, and yeah.
Well, same. No, I agree with that. And also in 1984, he did Sunday in the Park with George, which is a play all about a painting by Georges something. But it's like literally he saw the painting and was like, I'm going to do a play about that. And
is it that one famous painting where it's like in the 20s or something, and the lady's standing there? It's like a big lawn. It's like a green lawn, and everybody's like picnicking, and there's this one lady standing there. Like, I can picture
that
it
would
in my
make
face.
sense. That would make sense just because there's so much stories you could probably tell about this painting, but I honestly don't know.
Well, I'll just say every time I see Sunday in the Park, I sing Saturday in the Park from Chicago. Saturday in the park, something 4th of July.
You know what? It's right. You are right. That is the painting.
Yeah.
The one with the woman overlooking the lake.
Yeah.
And you have all the other people picnicking. Yes.
Good job, Teresa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at me pulling in things I was taught at one point in time.
Also, this play or this musical won the 1985 Pulitzer Prize.
Hey, the year I was born.
Yeah.
1987, one of our favorites, Into the Woods, came out, which tackles happily ever after and love at first sight again. He also talked about this before with a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
And for people who haven't seen Into the Woods, it's like a deconstructed fairy tale. It's, there's Cinderella and Rapunzel, Little Red Riding Hood. I'm trying to think what else. The Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just, and even
the
in
boy
the
who
lyrics,
sold a cow.
Yeah. And there's Snow White is in the lyrics of a couple of the songs. So he's sort of like kind of making this statement of, and when I watched it again before we did this show, I was like, wow, this is like really messed up. There's this like rotten little boy and this like hungry little girl that are like pains in the butts, and this couple wants kids, but they're showing you that these children are just like, why would you want to have kids? But they want to have kids, and just the whole adventure of them like trying to get there in their marriage itself. And then it's kind of like messed up when you watch it. Like, man, he's making like a total statement about the things we want. And that was in 1987. And now we tackle those topics now. Like, do you have to have kids? Do you have to want to have kids? Those type of things. Do you need to be married? All these things. And he was already talking about it. He was on it in 1987.
Also, I just have to mention a fun fact about this film. Emily Blunt plays the character, the baker's wife who wants to have a kid. She was pregnant at the time, which I find
didn't
amusing.
know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could totally tell now that they say that. Like, I watched the behind the scenes, and it's like, oh yeah, that smock is covering a baby bump.
And then in 1990, he won an Oscar for Best Original Song. Sooner or later, I Always Get My Man, from the film Dick Tracy. So if we are counting as far as awards go, he only won one Academy Award. He was nominated for, I think, 3. He won 8 Grammys.
Wow.
For Best Musical Theater Album for Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods. There were others as well. I just put those 2 since we're going to be talking about those 2, but 8 Grammys. He won 8 Tony Awards for Best Original Score. And then in 2008, he won the Lifetime Achievement in Theater Award. Now,
Awesome.
He barely missed being an EGOT, which is just like, oh, God, I wish. Because Oscar Hammerstein is an EGOT, which if you don't know what that is, that means that they've won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. He's missing the Emmy. He never got an Emmy, but Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did work with him on several of his projects or had him at least review and give him notes, is also 1 award away from an EGOT. He needs an Oscar. So I'm really hoping that Encanto
Encanto.
is his moment where he wins an Oscar and he finally has an EGOT. I don't know why. I just think that's such a cool thing. It's such a small group of people that.
Oh yeah, Rita Moreno. Speaking of West Side Story,
Rita Moreno
has one. Wow, that's so cool. I'm hoping.
Now, Sarah, tell us a little bit about why he's so important to theater. I mean, it's because of his lyrics, but tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, he like his lyrics and the fact that, I mean, yes, he's a great lyricist, but he also marries the music to his lyrics very well too. And I'll speak about that one particular instance later. But I feel like, we're talking about how he's tackling divorce. He's tackling a deconstructed fairy tale. He tackles these, not just like love, like West Side Story, or those typical things you think of when you think of musical theater, the I Want song, things like that. But he'll like tackle little pieces of human experience, like making a decision, or realizing that you just like someone as a companion. It takes two. Or he makes fun of legal systems with Officer Krupke from West Side Story. Like that whole song is, I mean, those lyrics to that song are just incredible if you just take them by themselves. I just think it's so amazing that with the lyrics, it comes around to the beginning again. Like he makes this full circle with a lot of his songs by doing an opening statement. Then he'll like go off and do all these lyrics that explain it, but then he'll come back to the opening statement again. And it's really cool. Now there's other ways he's important. So maybe Tricia, can you talk about that?
Well, I just kind of wanted to dovetail on your talk about the lyrics, because when I was watching Into the Woods and it came to the witch's introduction, which is played by Meryl Streep, and essentially the song is about the father of the baker who seduced and had an affair with the witch when she was a young, beautiful woman. And the whole song, she gets to the part where the mother says, "Don't share your beans." And she's not talking about the beans. She's talking, this whole song's about stealing my vegetables, and the beans is your virginity. But there's all these like crazy, beautiful words in this song. But there's totally another meaning. And if you get to it and you look and you listen to the song, you get it. You're like, okay, he's talking about vegetables and the beans are a specific thing. And when she loses her beans, she becomes the ugly old hag, a witch. And that's making a statement. Girls, if you lose your virginity, that's it. You're washed up. You're not going to be anybody. And he's saying something about that. And I just think like that you can take, I don't know, this is me as a prose writer. You can take these words and have two meanings to them, maybe three meanings, and then you have to make them all work to music and make them mean something and make them exciting and captivating. And sometimes, as we all know, we've talked about listening to soundtracks before we ever experience something. I'm going to go back to like Phantom of the Opera, which just like, if you've ever heard it, never seen it, and you can imagine it, then you're like, oh my God, I want to be part of this. And that history of just like songs captivating you before you ever see the visuals of it. And so he has to make that story work before you ever even get somebody to go, I want to put this in Broadway. You don't get to just go to Broadway. You go to workshops. So you get to workshop part of it. And people have to buy into those lyrics. And I just think that's so incredible. You can take words and put them in music and say something that's saying something else.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. I never got that he was, that she was saying that they had an affair. Oh my God. But now it's like you wrote the lyrics here, and we'll listen to a few of them right now.
He said, all right, but it wasn't quite, because I caught him in the autumn in my garden one night. He was robbing me, raping me, rooting through my rutabaga, raiding my arugula, and ripping up the rampion, my champion, my favorite. I should have laid a spell on him right there.
Oh my God.
It's so,
Wow.
I know when you see it and then you listen to it took a couple times, like the first couple times you don't get it. And then you're like, and that's kind of the trick of making statements sometimes people get enamored with the story and then they realize what you're saying, which is an easier way to make someone come around to your point of view. Right. So, I don't know how many, that's like the power of kind of Hamilton as well. People are enamored with the words and the music, and then they're like, oh, he's saying something.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pay attention.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, the new West Side Story came out. This is the version that is directed and created and all the word things by Steven Spielberg, which, can I just say that I love that Steven Spielberg did it? There's something about Steven Spielberg, and when he gets his hand on something that I'm just like, yes, he's a god. But when I first saw that this was coming out, I was like, okay, are we just playing in the remake game? What are we doing? And then the more we saw of it, and then I heard Marita Moreno talk about it and stuff, I was like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. This is going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it. And then as the reviews started coming out, and I was like, whoa, because I got hit with a bunch of like news headlines about, Steven Spielberg blows it out of the water. Steven Spielberg, this might be better than the original, and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy crap, what did he do? Was what I was thinking. I will say though, Maria, I'm okay with who they cast as Maria. The guy who plays Tony is not cute enough for me, but that's just me. I'm just saying. I mean,
okay. That's all right.
So what did you guys think about them redoing it?
I mean, I felt pretty much the same as you. Like, if anyone was going to redo it, I could trust Spielberg to do that. And if anything, that was confirmed by the ending of this West Side Story. So we're going to get a little spoilery just because to talk about it, we need to, because there's some really cool things he did. So at the end of the film, it goes to black and up pops the words "for Dad." And I thought that was cool. Like I could just see that Spielberg, like he knew his dad loved this film probably, or the original Broadway play. And so he was doing it as a love letter to, his dad, his family, and the play itself. I think he did an amazing job. Like this whole film was a love letter to the original because it stayed very true to the music and lyrics, like down to the music they played at the big dance at the beginning, but they actually showed the band and the trumpet player who was doing an awesome job. Like I loved that. And I feel like he really looked at the music and the lyrics, and they changed not the lyrics and the songs, but they changed a lot of the talking parts around the lyrics so that it fleshed out backstory of Riff and Tony, like their relationship, which made it more, it made it more deep when Riff got killed, right? And also the casting of Rita Moreno in the role of the soda person, soda owner. What is that? Shop owner, right?
The shop owner, yeah. She was married to Doc, and
right,
he's dead.
Exactly. And I thought that was just brilliant. And then I don't want to say everything, but my favorite part was that he chose different locations for the songs that made a little more sense for the film. Like especially America was done among the streets of New York and that area. Whereas in the original musical, it's like another dance that same night after they have the dance at the gym. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So there you go. Oh, and sorry, one more thing. The song "Cool" is in a different location. It's before the big fight, and it's at a dock which has holes in it, and it's about Tony trying to get the gun from Riff rather than just the gang trying to keep cool and not tell the cops that there was a fight. So there you go.
My understanding is that, because I'm not really as familiar with the Broadway show, I haven't seen it on Broadway, but my understanding is it's more true to the way the Broadway show unfolds than that the original movie took some liberties and moved some stuff around, and that they were based on, I read some interviews with Tony Kushner, who did the screenplay for this version, that they tried to go back and be a little more true to the Broadway show and the intent. And all of this was with Sondheim's blessing. So, you know, that the way that, you know, because film is a different format than musical theater. And we know that, like from Frozen, when they adapted that to Broadway, they had to add more songs to it.
Yeah, like 12 or something.
Yeah, because that's everything that happens. You can't do the wide shots so that you could do on film. So things have to stay close, and you have to relay them through the characters, and you can't do the kind of some of the sweeping things you could do in a film. I have to say, changing Rita Moreno into the role that she's in was like made it really powerful in the scene in the soda shop when the gang tries to rape her character, and then she's saving herself and like telling them. And I was like, kind of like, wow. And I actually read an article. Not only that, Rita Moreno's been sexually assaulted. So she was having to go through this whole like other level of it. And I was like, whoa, this is like way crazy, you know, that they were going through that. And of all of it, Mike Faced, I think is his name, that plays Riff, is that dude. He slayed it. He lost 20 pounds for when he got the role, because he said one of the things that they really drive home in this version is that these kids are being thrown out of their neighborhoods. Their neighborhoods are being torn down, and they have immigrants that are moving into the country. And so there's this, like, they're like literally like lost boys that are running around. So he's like, this kid's like poor. He's gonna be hungry, and he's not going to be like a healthy weight. So he lost weight. I guess he freaked everybody else out when he showed up on set, and he just like went into this role. But apparently this is what this guy does. So I hope he gets his recognition, gets out of Broadway, and gets more movie roles, because he was just like incredible.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to this movie, because it addresses things like immigration and, you know, different cultures and people having to learn to deal with change and all of those things, I mean, those are messages that are clearly happening now also. Mm-hmm. So even though this was originally, you know, a way long time ago, but it's still relevant today, which is sad that it's still relevant today, but it's another way to get people to pay attention to the issues that are going on. And hopefully they see this and it triggers something for them to start thinking about what's going on around them. Because I mean, it really does speak to a lot of what, you know, we're currently dealing with here in the United States. And Tricia, you mentioned Rita Moreno. I've heard her talk about the fact that she was sexually assaulted when she was younger. And she's also done interviews talking about her immigration, you know, and things like that. And so I think being a part of West Side Story for her is really, really special, because it, you know, in a way addresses certain parts of her life. You know, now I know Rita Moreno more from some of her comedic roles than I know her from her theater roles, but I mean, she's equally talented in all of those things, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't have an EGOT. But, you know, I think with where she's at in life right now is just a beautiful place to be, because you're looking at someone who's survived so much and can be open about it, talk about it, act in it, you know, and portray the things that need to be portrayed. And she knows how important her voice is. And she continues to do that work, even though, I mean, she's not a young lass anymore. But yeah.
Well, actually, piggybacking off of that, I mean, one of the big changes in this movie for song wise was the fact that the song Somewhere is not sung here by Tony and Maria, but it's sung by Rita Moreno. Yeah. And somewhere we'll find a new way of living, we'll find a place of forgiving. Like the lyrics, like her singing it just added so many layers to this musical, not only because of her life and what she's had to deal with, like what you've just explained, but also the character she was playing was an immigrant married to a white guy. And it was the same that Maria and Tony are trying to do right then. And it just, oh my God, I was like, why did I not bring tissues to this screening? I was looking at my purse going, no. I was just crying the whole time. It was amazing.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of the story that gets me too, is the interracial couples, because I'm a part of an interracial couple. My brother has been part of interracial couples. My nephews are products of interracial couples. It's funny, Greg's brother married a Hispanic girl from Texas. So that's like ever present in my mind. And Greg and I have faced a little bit of discrimination sometimes because of the fact that we're an interracial couple. And so that's another piece of the story that is, that sticks out to me. And also, this is kind of something I don't talk about a whole lot, but like my grandparents on both sides, I believe, at times had a really hard time with their kids, and then us not being in relationships with people of the same race. It was never a thing that was like spoken, like, you can't do that. It was just you could tell that they were having to adjust. And I've been able to see it over the years. So much so, down to little funny story here, includes a musical. My grandfather, the first time he ever saw Wizard of Oz, which he apparently didn't see back when it came out, which I don't understand because my grandma and I watched it all the time, but he'd never seen it. And back in, I don't know when it must have been like 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in there. I took them to the theater when Wizard of Oz came back out in the theater for some anniversary or whatever. And when the Cowardly Lion is singing, I never thought I would ever hear this from my grandfather before, but he leans over to me and he's like, "Is he gay?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "I think he makes a good gay lion." And I'm like, okay. It's just like, I never thought I would ever hear that from my grandfather, but that's what I mean. I mean, they were really all open-minded, but you could tell there was still a struggle, a little bit.
Well, yeah, in this West Side Story version in Spielberg's, the tomboy character, anybody's, is now a confirmed transgender character. And so that's whereas a lot of times in theater, characters are like, kind of, there's an implication, but they never say it. And we see that a lot of time in, like, we talk about that a lot in Star Wars, where they imply characters are, like in Harry Potter, you get confirmed after the fact that this is this. But in this case, it was that. I also wonder too, Teresa, you're talking about the interracial romance part, and the movie hasn't been that big of a success as like internet sphere would like it to have been. And I wonder, because it is a tragedy, that it's not a success story. I mean, there's lessons learned and statements about it, but even then, like, it's not like, you're not going to win. You didn't win. There's no there's no thriving beyond it. That if that is sometimes not the message that people want to get right now, especially when other stories like that are telling stories about diversity, inclusion, interracial marriage, you get to see some success, like you get to see that there's a upside. So I wonder, sometimes that kind of weighs into it. People are just like, yeah, I know West Side Story, I don't want to go there. You tell me that it's a tragedy. I mean, some people like tragedies, but
well, you know how I interpret that? How? It's gonna win a bunch of Oscars. That's how I interpret it.
If Birdman can win Oscars, this can, damn it.
I hope they're talking about Rita might get a nomination, and she could then, it would be interesting to see that kind of the talk that it would get of her getting to do it again,
That'd
essentially.
be amazing.
Yeah.
I
that
have to say,
song though. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Such pathos when she sung it. I was like, oh.
Yeah,
okay.
one of those songs is going to be nominated for best
Yeah.
song.
oh, for sure. Anita Boss, who plays Rita's character in
Ooh,
this
yes.
version, she was on So You Think You Can Dance.
Oh.
So she was a contestant, and I kept looking at her and going, I know her from somewhere. I know her from somewhere. And then I looked it up. I was like, aha, got it. But she went straight from that show to Broadway. So it's not like they, just, she went on from the show and had success. And I think it's cool that Spielberg went to some Broadway names to, for some of his supporting cast, that he didn't just go, oh, I'm just going to find actors that can dance. Like, there's a language and a way you express yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit different than film, but one of the reasons I liked what Spielberg did was that he went with that. Like, he went with trying to now, with the technology you can, and with the budget, you can literally just say, I'm going to like make it like the experience of going to a Broadway show.
Absolutely.
What some people don't know, and this is just like little tips and tricks for if you're in a city that has shows, a lot of times if you're staying in a hotel, you can just ask them, because most of the tickets are bought up by companies, and you can just ask your concierge what's available. You can also there's usually, if you want to try to get to a show, you can go to the box office and get in line. And sometimes they have like tickets that are on hold for cast members or whatever that release at last minute. You can get them like dirt cheap. So it's always worth trying when you get there to just give it a try. And I learned that, like, when I was in London, as a teenager, they took us all and they're like, you go down to this little vendor and they're like, what shows do you have? And then they sell them dirt cheap because they want to fill the seats if they're, not going to get to the end. So there's always a way to get to see something. I have friends who've seen Hamilton like 10 or 11 times and paid, because Hamilton tickets are insane expensive, but because they just go in and try, they're willing to try on a daily basis. They've gotten tickets for $20, $25 and never paid more than that to see it. So if you really want to see a Broadway show, I know sometimes it's insane, but there are ways to do it on the cheap. So if you can do it at least once, and if you do it once, you'll probably want to do it again. Definitely go see a Broadway show live. And that could be like Chicago, San Francisco, LA. There's multiple places where parts of the country you can see shows.
All right. Well, moving off of West Side Story, I think we kind of covered it a little bit already, but my personal favorite work of Sondheim is Sweeney Todd. Because I am a disturbing individual.
Dark Side Girl.
Girl. There is just something about that particular musical that I love. And the story, the messaging, the music, it's just absolutely wonderful. So that is mine. And we're about to talk about some of our favorite songs or musical numbers. So you guys will get to hear what mine are. But these two girls, they love
Into the Woods.
Yeah.
I mean, this I think we love it so much because, I mean, we're Disney girls, right? We're Disney girls at heart.
Yeah.
The fact that this is a deconstructed fairy tale on top of the amazing music and lyrics of it. And also, if you think about it, I mean, we went through a lot of Sondheim's work, and this is one of his final productions that he's put on. So he's learned everything. He's put all that he's learned into it. It's like a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece. And that's how I feel about Into the Woods. Tricia?
Yes, because it's so darn smart. It's like this voice of wisdom, like taking all the lessons and just making this like masterpiece. And he's telling a story while he's deconstructing stories and deconstructing the way we consume them and deconstructing the messages that we've taken from them and going, okay, y'all pay attention now. And this is where you're going to have fun. You don't even realize that I'm doing this to you.
All right. So let's get into our favorite song or songs or musical number. So Teresa, do you want to maybe state a song and why you like it the best?
Sure. We're gonna start off dark, I see. So my absolute favorite song from Sweeney Todd is called A Little Priest. And this is the song where Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett, who in the film is played by Helena Bonham Carter, they come up with the idea to get rid of people that are problems in society and are causing the corrupted people by cooking them into meat pies.
It is really dark.
It is really dark. But what the beginning of the song, this song is long. The beginning of the song talks about how the cost of meat is so expensive. This is at a time where, you know, lots of people couldn't make ends meet in London. I mean, it's the dirty side of London with the cobblestone streets and, you know, all those things and stuff. And so they're talking about how meat is so expensive, and then how there's like people are just terrible. And they say, so Todd says, for what's the sound of the world out there? And then he says, those crunching noises pervading the air. And he says, it's man devouring man, my dear. And so then she says, who are we to deny it in here? And that's how it really gets started. And then I would say my favorite part. So they go into this whole thing about a little priest. They're talking about different occupations of people and what they would taste like in the meat pie. And so we'll listen to that section right now where they're introducing the priest part, and then I'll give you guys my favorite section.
What is that?
It's priest, have a little priest.
Is it really good?
So it's too good, at least. Then again, they don't commit sins of the flesh, so it's pretty fresh.
Awful lot of fat.
Only where it's at.
Haven't you got poet or something like that?
Now you see the trouble with poet is how do you know it's deceased? Try the priest.
This is my favorite part when he says, haven't you got poet or something like that? And she says, no, you see the trouble with poet is how do you know it's deceased? Try the priest. And so they kind of goes through all these different people. They talk about like a bishop, a royal marine, a grocer, a squire. And it's just hilarious because it's sung in a really upbeat way and like really exciting and all of this stuff about, you know, we're going to, you know, murder all these corrupt people and feed them to them and make them eat their own corruption, which is ultimately what happens in Sweeney Todd. But with Sweeney Todd, the underlying story, which a lot of people, if you only listen to certain parts, you would never know, but the main judge has Sweeney Todd removed from his family, from his daughter, from his wife, because he wants his wife. He wants Todd's wife, and he has him imprisoned for something that he didn't do. Todd comes back and he just doesn't look the same. He doesn't act the same, any of that stuff, but he discovers what happens. So his whole entire goal is to murder the judge and get his family back. His wife is still alive, but she's gone off the rockers at the beginning. And his daughter is there, and there's a whole story related to all of that. But yep, A Little Priest it's good stuff. Nice. It's really dark and I love it. I love everything about it.
That's our Teresa.
Don't be afraid. I'm not gonna eat you.
Nice. All right, well, I'm gonna go. Oh gosh, I have like 3 songs here, but okay, so I'm just gonna say the prologue to Into the Woods, because he did both the music and lyrics to this, and it's a 15-minute song. And yet it's so compelling. It lays out all the 4 characters that we're going to follow throughout the film and their I wants. That's very important. And that's exactly, I mean, that's exactly what it's about. And then there's just such fun lyrics in it too. Like at one point, the Jack the Beanstalk's mom, it wants him to sell a cow. And she's like, we've no time to sit and dither while her withers wither with her, and no one keeps a cow for a friend. Like, who thinks of these lyrics? It's like the running through my rutabaga, blah, 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 all that stuff. Like, it's hilarious. And I think it's amazing. I was watching it again last night, just to rewatch it. And after the end of the song, I looked and it said 16 minutes on the timeline. I'm like, holy crap, that did not feel like 16 minutes. That felt like, I was watching an amazing movie, like maybe 6 minutes, like the opening to Beauty and the Beast, which is a 6-minute long song that introduces Belle and Gaston. So that I just think it's just masterful. I think it's amazing.
Into the woods, the path is straight, you know it well.
But who can tell?
Into the woods to lift the spell. Into the woods to visit mother.
Into the woods to sell the cow.
To get the money. To go to the festival.
Into the woods to grandmother's house.
Into the woods without delay, but careful not to lose the way. Into the woods, who knows what may be lurking on the journey. Into the woods to get the thing that makes it worth the journeying. Into the woods to see the king.
To sell the cow.
To make the potion.
To see, to sell, to get, to bring, to make, to live, to go to the festival. See to the woods. To get, to bring, to make, to the woods. To go to the festival. See to the woods. To get to the woods. To make, to live, to go to the festival. Into the woods, get out of the woods. To see, to sell, to get, to bring, to make, to live, to go to the festival. Into the woods, get out of the woods. Get home before dark.
All right, Tricia.
My favorite song is Agony.
Yay! That was one of mine, but you can take that one.
I just love that it's this like whole song about man pain and it's totally mocking them. In the movie, it's Chris Pine's character who thinks he's getting turned away by Cinderella, but we have this whole other side where, we see like her decision-making process and her wants and needs. And then you have, I can't remember the other, it's brother.
The other prince. The other prince is his name in the film.
That's his name, hilarious. The other prince.
Yes.
And I think the implication is that they're brothers and that he's, Rapunzel doesn't want to come down from her tower to be with him. And so it's all about their pain of, aren't I handsome and good and do all these things and I'm a prince is kind of how it wraps up. And why don't they want me? And I'm like, oh, these poor little boys. But if you've seen the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, Google just a scene just for Chris Pine, like ripping open. The best part in the scene is he rips open his shirt to show his chest. And then the other prince likes oh, so he rips open his shirt too to like,
they're like competing with each other on the amount of pain that they're going through.
So it's like, yes, my man pain. And it's like competition. And it's just, that song cracks me up.
Am I not sensitive, clever, well-mannered, considerate, passionate, charming, as kind as I'm handsome, and heir to a throne?
You are everything maidens could wish for.
Then why
do I know?
The girl must be mad.
You know nothing of madness till you're climbing her hair and you see her up there as you're nearing her, all the while hearing her agony, misery, although it's different for each.
Always 10 steps behind,
always 10 feet below, and she's just out of reach. Agony that can cut like a knife.
I don't think anybody else could have played or done. I mean, Chris Pine's not the best singer in the world, but it's the performance that makes up for it.
It is. And the fact that it's set on a waterfall. which is a whole nother thing if you think about it.
I know, that's why there's so many that's why I'm still sometimes like Disney let them do this, because this is where, you know, executives have no idea what's
Right.
Yeah. Like the movie producers like, yeah, let's do Into the Woods. It's Sondheim. And I'm like, oh, this movie is so rotten at points. And maybe it'll go over the kids' heads, but yep.
Yes. Well, I have a runner up to that, and I'm going to follow that up just because we're talking about Into the Woods. And then Teresa, maybe you can tell yours. But you talked about how Cinderella makes her own decision. And this is Anna Kendrick. And she has this song on the steps of the palace where the prince has spread pitch on the stairs, and that's where her shoe gets stuck. You know, the famous Cinderella loses her shoe. And so the whole movie, it just time stops and she steps out of that, or she like sings this song while time is stopped, where she's trying to make this decision. Like, what does she do? Does she stay stuck? Does she leave? And she's stuck in the goo. And I just think it's amazing. This one song, this lyrical section, how long can you rhyme one word like shoe? So let's listen to this part.
When you're thinking it through, things don't have to collide. I know what my decision is, which is not to decide. I'll just leave him a clue. For example, a shoe. And then see what he'll do. Now it's he and not you who'll be stuck with a shoe in a stew, in the goo. And I've learned something too, something I never knew. On the steps of the palace.
So I think the most amazing thing about this song is this is a great example of how Sondheim marries lyrics with the melody, because not only is she singing about how she's stuck in the goo, but the melody is actually repeating and repeating and repeating. It is stuck in the goo too, until she makes her decision and she reaches that finale of on the steps of the palace. You know, you finally get that one. So I thought that was amazing.
And there's another musical that borrows that moment and does the stop in time, which is Hamilton Satisfied, which is one of the best numbers in that, where the turntable actually goes backwards and they undo the choreography to go backwards. But it's the same type of thing where she's sort of stuck in a moment and kind of giving this character.
That's the sister, right?
Yes.
The sister.
Yeah, she's going through the whole, like, everything that's happened and kind of showing you things, which is the same sort of thing where you're just taking this liberty of kind of just stopping the character in a moment and then just like laying it all out. But in a way, that's what a lot of musical numbers are. They're kind of like expanding moments in a person's life. But in those two numbers, you have this really, like, it's just literally like a moment in time that you're just getting like the 18 million emotions and things that all layered onto a decision that you make.
Yeah. Nice. Teresa, did you have one more?
I do, but I'm actually changing it from the one that I put down, just because I was like, well, I've already talked about them singing, so I'm going to talk about somebody else. There is another song. It's called Pirelli's Miracle Elixir. And there's this character that comes into Sweeney Todd, and he's like prides himself on his haircuts and his shaves, and which is a big part of this because Sweeney Todd is a barber. But he's selling this miracle elixir for hair, like for balding with your hair. And of course it's a sham, you know, but he's trying to make money off people. But this song is just, when it comes down to like lyrics, I was thinking about lyrics, like how do you make a song about this? So let's listen just to the beginning part of this so that you can hear how ridiculous it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Do you wake every morning in shame and despair to discover your pillow is covered with hair? Or not to be there? Well, gentlemen, from now on you can waken at ease. You need never again have a worry or care. I will show you a miracle, marvelous rare. Gentlemen, you are about to see something will rose from the dead. On the top of my head, 'twas Pirelli's miracle elixir. That's what did the trick, sir. True, sir, true. Was it quick, sir? Did it in a tick, sir? Just like an elixir ought to do.
And all he's talking about is having a dermatologic disease and his hair falling out and all of this stuff. It's a really fun song. It's just like, what? Okay.
Sometimes you need those fun songs.
Well, it leads to a really key scene, which is where Sweeney Todd really comes out and shows what his skills are with shaving. And that's how he starts to get customers coming in. And that's how he gets the corrupt politicians and stuff to start coming in. Because they see him compete against this guy that is just, amazing.
Vanity.
Yeah, vanity. So that would be my other one, just playing around with like weird themes and lyrics, which I love. All right, now clearly we are very big Sondheim fans, but we also love musicals, and I thought it would be fun to just talk for a few minutes about some of the musicals that we love, that we feel are inspired by Stephen Sondheim. I'm gonna go first. Okay. My first one is Rent. And the reason I say Rent, I mean, of course, if you don't know, Stephen Sondheim did Mentor, the creator of Rent, whose name has completely run away from my brain right now, Jonathan Larson. I got it.
Good job.
And he helped mentor him on projects, and he actually saw one of his first projects that he did. And there's actually a movie on Netflix right now called Tick Tick Boom, which is talking about that. It's Jonathan Larson, like before Rent, and there is a Stephen Sondheim character in that movie, so you can actually watch that right now. Andrew Garfield plays Jonathan Larson, and I've watched the first half. It's pretty good so far. It's also a really interesting story, but I feel like Rent goes there with the themes in a similar way to the themes that Stephen Sondheim would deal with, very important themes in the moment, because Rent is dealing with the AIDS pandemic in the 80s and the LGBTQ community back then. And it's a phenomenal show. I mean, I think it was one of the longest running shows on Broadway, and then it's made a couple of reappearances and there's been film versions. The lyrics are so clever. I don't know if we'll have time, but if we do, a little bit of, La Vie Boheme.
Oh,
it's amazing. I mean, that song in and of itself is amazing. There's other fantastic songs, obviously, but La Vie Boheme is great. And I feel like it has the most Sondheim-esque vibes.
Days of inspiration, playing hooky, making something out of nothing. The need to express, to communicate, to going against the grain, going insane, going mad. To love intention, no pension, to more than one dimension, to starving for attention, hating convention, hating pretension, not to mention, of course, hating dear old mom and dad.
Well, Hamilton is I think very informed by Sondheim, just that it's about social issues. It's kind of making a statement, just sort of pushing the boundaries of everything. Hamilton's one of my favorites. Wicked is another favorite, which if you're going to talk about Sondheim's, when Sondheim was putting his shows out, there was always like a different show on Broadway at the same time that was really just kind of like the formula, like a happy-go-lucky kind of the happily ever after stories that we talk about. He's just deconstructing or ending up with the marriage. So he was always kind of like the antithesis of that was happening. So Wicked to me is like that story that kind of strive to break the mold as well. There's these female characters that, you know, the evil character isn't as evil as she thinks she is, type of thing, and she has wants and needs that lead her to be who she is, and you see all these other things. So for me, that kind of that he made said you can be more than just this happy-go-lucky shows that people want to come to, that people can get something out of a story that's making a statement, and not necessarily in an angsty way, because I still think there's, you know, he understands the idea of that you need like release, that there needs to be like uplifting things in the story. So those are my two favorites.
Yeah, and really quick, Sarah, I'll let you go in just a second because this sort of piggybacks off that. The other one that I think of that I think fits right into that mold is La La Land. And this film got a lot of criticism because of the fact that it doesn't follow the traditional formula of the I Want song and then this and then that. And then also the fact that the ending is not a happy ending, or it's not the ending you want it to be. You get to the end and you're like, what? Like, I don't understand. This is a musical. It's supposed to be wrapped up in bows and unicorns at the end of it. And it's not. And I really like that movie, but I struggle with the ending every single time because it goes against, I think, my innate human wants of like, I want it to be happy, and it's not. And so it's been a chore being able to accept the fact that they don't end up together, but whatever. It's just it's really hard for me, but I really do think La La Land is really inspired by Sondheim because of the fact that they deal with serious relationship issues, like serious stuff. And it's not just light and fluffy and, you know, all of that. And I don't know, there's something like the way the music is written and the visuals and everything, it gives me the Sondheim feels.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like you guys have talked about musicals that kind of follow the formula of what he talks about, but when I was watching Sondheim musicals, I think about particular songs and like how they relate in the musical format. So like for me, that Into the Woods prologue that's so long, I feel like Howard Ashman was a big fan of Sondheim because I mean he was the one who was really pulling for the Beauty and the Beast opening number to be over 6 minutes. You know, like the executives were like, oh my God, we can't have a song that long starting a film. Like no one's gonna listen to it. And yet he was like fighting for it, and it totally works. I mean, you are pulled into that movie because of that. So I feel like that's a great example. And then also I want to bring up Aladdin as well, because in a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, there's a song where they introduce the guy who wants the wife, or do you know his name?
I can't remember the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a really egotistical, really bad guy, but it's sung like the number is sung in such a way that it makes him seem really awesome because he's all these things. And it just reminded me so much of Prince Ali from Aladdin, where they're just, you know, like introducing Aladdin as Prince Ali, marvelous he, Ali Ababwa, you know, and all the great things that he has and does and things like that. So those were the ones that came to mind when I was thinking Sondheim.
When you said that, I totally, as soon as you started saying it, I was like, yeah, because the funny thing happened the way of the forum is a lot about these like grand like entrances, or, you know, and it's a misdirection or not seeing somebody who they truly are, which is all what Aladdin's about, right? Yeah. It's like that he says, this is who you are, and people just believe it because the guy says that. And that's exactly what happens in that movie. So when you said that, I'm like, yep, I can see it.
I love the opening to Beauty and the Beast. It's so good. So good. So yes, well, we would love to know if you guys love any of the things that we've talked about. Like, are you fans of musicals? Are you fans of Stephen Sondheim? Do you have any favorites of his works or anything that you have seen? Because I know there's other people, there's Yub Cubs that are fans of musicals. And sometimes people are closet secret fans of musicals because it's not the popular thing, but whatever. Let's make it
fans
popular.
are welcome here.
Secret fans are welcome here, but also let's just normalize it. Let's normalize it, because now it's normal to be a Marvel fan. It's not weird. You know, you're not a nerd anymore. So don't be a nerd about musicals either. I don't know. I just I feel like people you look down upon people who like musicals, you know, which I think is dumb. Personally,
I think a lot of that's from like high school. Like if you were in the theater club,
probably.
you were like that person. And then, you know, over time, then some people are like, when you get to college and it's cool or not. But whatever, who cares what other high schoolers think?
Yeah.
Except for when we were in high school. I don't care now what you thought.
No. All right. Well, we have some stuff coming up over in our Fangirls Going Rogue Facebook group. So Tricia, tell us a little bit about that and how people can hang out with us a little bit over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So we did our last Facebook group Zoom chat on Saturday night, and we will be resuming on January 8th, which means that we will be discussing a Hawkeye season finale, and we will be discussing the opening of the Book of Boba Fett, and we will also be opening up the discussion to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. I had to think about this. I always get confused. Far From Home, Homecoming. Did they have to put home in everyone?
Yeah,
So
it was really annoying.
So we did have a discussion about Spider-Man, but we knew that not everybody would have discussed it and would like to. So January 8th, we will resume those.
So it'll be 5 hours long then.
Probably it was, I think, 2.5.
Oh my God.
Like episode 5 of Hawkeye.
Yeah, that was good.
One of my favorites.
Yes.
And I would have to say the reaction from everybody in the group was that was one of everybody's favorites. And then we had Spider-Man, which was, I think, a resounding favorite. It's a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I'm not going to spoil anything because you guys haven't seen it yet.
See it tomorrow night.
I have just been engulfing myself in Encanto stuff. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and we're going to be able to see Encanto on Christmas Day
on
Disney Plus.
Again, I'm so excited.
Richard and I are excited too. Yeah, we're like,
I actually haven't seen Encanto.
Okay,
so
little
I know.
Plug, little plug.
Okay.
I got to be on an episode of Skywalking Through Neverland. We'll put the link in the show notes where I reviewed Encanto with Sarah and Richard. And let me just tell you, I don't always speak out about things, but I brought my A game for Latinx representation to that episode. So if you want to hear me, talk about equality, go listen.
Mm-hmm. No, well, we were very impressed and we were very happy you came on and we had an awesome discussion. It was awesome.
It was really, really fun.
It's actually one of our most downloaded shows this year.
Really?
So.
I have it bookmarked because I didn't want to spoil myself. But
right.
I do
you will be very spoiled.
Yeah. So I wanted to watch it first and then listen to the discussion. So but
cool.
Yeah. And also one quick thing, just because I didn't mention it on your episode, Sarah, but I just want to say that I feel like Disney's making strides because their marketing team collaborated with a Cuban American owned indie makeup brand to do the cosmetic collection for Encanto. So it was developed by a whole entire Latinx team, which is I'm so glad they went with one indie brands, not a big, CoverGirl Star Wars bet.
Right.
But they did it right. They did it so well. I mean, it's gorgeous. And I've been holding off on buying it, but I think I'm going to have to pull the plug because it's just.
Yeah, it's Alamar Cosmetics is the brand. And I actually have a YouTube video up. I was gonna watch someone who had the whole collection.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I have a couple of makeup YouTubers that have been reviewing it and they're saying that it's one of their favorite palettes of 2021 for eyeshadow palettes. So anyway, I just think that if Disney's starting to do that and paying attention, I'm impressed. So
nice.
Cool. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I had a moment.
Okay. Hey, you got to take it. It had. What I think when they involve people that understand it from a basic level, that they're going to end up with with a better more engaging product. So, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything with Hawkeye, but we talk about having women on screen, and we had scenes with women talking to women again in other scenes, and then the hero making best friends with a Black character and showing empathy to a dog. So I like, on the scale of these are the things that we asked for, episode 5 like totally delivered. And this week Disney marketing is plugging the 4 women of Hawkeye. That's their plug. And so we have characters. So you know what, Disney, keep doing your thing.
All right. Well, if you guys want to interact with us and chat with us in between shows, you can visit us over at fangirlsgoingrogue.com. You can also find us on our socials at FG Going Rogue. Tricia is at Fangirl Cantina. Sarah is at Jedi Tink. Sandra is at Geek Chic 9. Kai is at Yogi Kai. And I am at Ice Cold Penguin. Otherwise known as Penguin. I was just saying it the way that is it David Tennant says penguin. He can't say it.
Oh my God. No, it's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch, not David Tennant. Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that's
penguin.
The funniest video ever of him saying it wrong like 80 times. He's like, no one told me.
He does a documentary about penguins, and he says penguins.
Penguins. You can leave us a voicemail about penguins on 33121 Ewoks. That's 331-213-9657, or send us an email, contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com, and tell us what other musicals you would like us to discuss.
Yes, and we want emails because I want to read them on the show and get and get y'all's thoughts out on the show. Who am I?
So contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com. Send us those emails. You can also send us pictures of penguins or musicals or whatever you've been in on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, Fangirls Going Rogue. Just search that. You can join our Facebook group, and in each of those places, you'll learn when we have our Zoom discussions, all of that. Facebook. Woohoo!
Zoom discussion Saturday night at 8 p.m. resuming January 8th. And if you enjoyed this episode, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. We need your reviews so more people can find us.
So until next time, yob,
yob, yob, yob.
Salam and good evening.
Good evening to you, worthy friends. Please come closer.
Too close, a little too close. What the hell is that?
It's her. Oh, wait, that's the saddest tauntaun. Play it again. He says, "Stop shoving Luke Skywalker into my belly."